Hello, this is Pigsy doing another video. I have a little treasure today. It's very interesting, synchronicities. Possibly the effects of spiritual yoga. I guess that's probably the best way of putting it. I mean, all things can be considered spiritual if it's in development of the self. But I think really it has an effect on the spirit. Basically, that's the impact will make something spiritual. It's not just euphoric. It feels like a deeper connection to the soul, because I don't know. You'd have to find some way of dividing things, like a religious experience. You know, it's kind of like some wisdom as something clicked into place. You know, it's also something maybe that's been written down and shared down generations. Like you look at something in a different way. That's probably the only way to define religious. It doesn't have to have a pretext of science to it. Maybe it just fits and feels right. There's also the idea, the idea of faith, because you can over-question things to the point that you don't take in what you're being told or the experience. And also, not everything fits into the human realm, I guess. But yeah, what I come across today, it was, I was looking around for it, I was thinking about it. It was an ultrasonic cleaning device. And to explain why, I've recently started looking at antique bits and bobs. I've got to watch them, because when you're on eBay, you suddenly get people rapidly start bidding on things. So I lost out on a ring earlier, but I thought, well, there's too many people watching it. It claims to be medieval, but I don't know what period it's from really. And there's a lot of fake things out as well, it's difficult. But the ultrasonic device should be able to clean them up quite good. And that might come as an advantage if I'm finding the old finds. And things like coins as well. So old coins and stuff, things that are brass I want to polish up, but I clean them up first, give them a light polishing, and then try to probably prove it of a varnish or something to protect it from oxidization. And as from a spiritual perspective, I can take a reading of the past. So you take the object. So there's different skill sets, spiritual ones. So that's one of them, just being able to read something, sense something, gain something. You know, some people it might be at different levels. So you might be able to sense the emotions behind something. But like somebody who's interested in luck, they want to increase the luck. If luck was a power they can attain, which they probably can do to some point, basically it's steering the will of all these other people. So everyone wants to win, but you want to win. Not you want to win more than them. You want to in some way use that energy they're projecting to aid your way of winning, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So it's just kind of influence a stream of energy. That's what it's a bit like. Because they're in conflict, it's like a tug of war between what they're trying to manifest. And so you might have to think small, or be manifesting it, and also the impact of what you manifest. This is why most people, if they win money, they don't try to change anything particularly much, but they probably want to, and that's where the danger of changing, you almost corrupting your timeline. You know, you could become a completely different person, or you could completely disrupt somebody else's. You know, it might just alter the whole dynamic of your reality. And I think that's the other impact, is different timelines relying on other timelines. And that's why it's important that I continue down this path, because I'm having success in my experiences. I'm deepening my knowledge spiritually. I'm gaining some of the yoga. I'm starting to open up the chakras. I'm starting to feel where they are. So I'm actually exploring them in my body and realise that if you focused on them and you can sense them, you can increase this energy. It's like at the moment I can feel the heat of my heart there. And so every day I'm trying to meditate. And also meditate on points in your body, not just, just focusing on your thoughts clearing your head up with things, but focusing your energy into a stream. That's what it is. So that your consciousness manifests itself in your nervous system. Now, like I mentioned before, the impact of what you do inside yourself, the internal alchemy is going to be no issue. The external alchemy has an effect on other factors around you. Like the internal does. If you meditate and you become a better person, the impact is you start noticing changes in your own family. It's because you're all in tuned, like a tuning fork. You're all running at a different, similar sort of frequency, a family group, and so they kind of end up getting developed or affected by what you do in your life. So karma isn't just limited to the one person; it also affects the herd. That's the thing to take away from that. So, which is quite right. This is why when people commit suicide, for example, the impact of that is it saddens the whole family, or anybody knows that person, because they share in the same guilt and sorrow that created it. That burst whereby they went from existence out of existence. Yeah, no one celebrates their death, do they? So the other thing about this ultrasonic device is I come across a video. So okay, I'll continue with this thing, and I can come back to loop back on myself. So I come across this video where somebody aged a drink. So you take a cheap alcohol, take a cheap vodka, cheap whiskey, and the person acquired was the chips that were used in the barrels that brewed the booze. And he got the chips, these organic chips, and they could be used probably for the garden and stuff, and other little projects. Anyway, the organic chips, he used that, put the mixture of the drink in there, and used the ultrasonic frequencies to accelerate the aging process of the drink, because the chemical reaction between the wood and the alcohol was accelerated, and so you have a kind of woody taste to the drink. This is brilliant because it also means you can add woody drinks to things that wouldn't be able to. So basically, you could take a soft drink and add an element of wood to it. So you could make the most non-alcoholic drink ever. You could take some apple juice and stick some kind of wood chips you would have got from some alcohol from a brewery place, and age it, and then you've got a non-alcoholic type of cider, I guess. And some other things, you can molecularly alter things. So a bit like there was this Hessian bloke. He was cooking with liquid nitrogen. I mean, potentially with ultrasound, there's a lot of potential mixed in there that is untapped and untouched. Possibly, you could weaponize it as well. To be honest, if you had got the right frequency that would sort of damage tissue, then you could weaponize that. And it might be already weaponized, give people a heart attack or something, arrhythmia, and then some other health issues. But potentially there's other things, health benefits, there's medical benefits from ultrasound. They've been using it to remove plaques from the people's brains. I look at using it on my body, but I move to that phase slowly, because first I have to assess the impact on tissue. I've got a knee joint that has a bit of trouble. I think it's probably calciumified in bits, and there may be a reduction in the cartilage. So I might use the ultrasound basically to move the fluids on, but also it will it will smooth the edges of anything rough in there. Put it that way, because the vibration, anything that's a defect in there, it can wear it down slightly as well. So it records that and regeneration. Now, something that happens with horses. So if you've got a lame horse, a racehorse, and it's got a damage to its joint, what they were doing is in order to fix the injury, they were further damaging it to get the stem cells and the bone marrow to come through to fix the damage. So there's that possibility as well. So you could use it. I mean, from a martial art perspective, you could train the body. And it was a hard style martial art, and then use the ultrasound to help in the healing process afterwards. But you've got to be so careful. I mean, I know the ultra frequencies generated from pneumatic drills give people white knuckle, some sort of disorder where they got this basically. I think there's pains in there and arthritis in the joints because they've had a lot of impact from something like the pneumatic drill. But I think it's not just ultrasound. It's to do with. I'll have to look at sound waves. It's to do with the impact of that. It's like shock absorbing and impact waves, and it's the duration as well. I'm also thinking I might do wood chip aging, and I might use it in conjunction with ormus. Now, if you know what ormus is, it's basically a mineral extraction with the idea of it's kind of like oxidized state, but there's I think there's anon gas. It's something, it only binds with oxygen in the air. So what you do is you combine that, and I think that's probably in connection to the ether energy. So it's like the association of air and chi. Anything that can contain air contains a certain type of organic chi, anyway, let's put it that way. Because all things contain energy, it's not that. And then there's the more elusive in the quantum field of chi, or resonance and changing frequencies and things. If you raise your frequency, someone says you've increased your chi. Well, actually, you've probably increased the vibration. The chi was already there. It's just that it's a vibration that works better with your body in a certain way or structure. It's a bit like sound. Some sound has healing effects, where if you have a different type of sound frequency, it causes a reverse effect, have a reduced energy effect, or also certain frequencies of sound relate to emotional energy, which causes the effect of triggering emotions. So emotions are not just felt, they're received and sent. This is why you've got empathy, you feel and sense someone's energy, but it's not just body language, so it's more complicated. There's so much knowledge out there, it's unbelievable. Once you start opening your third eye, your heart chakra and other things, you start getting all this intuition blasting through, and even the stomach's got so much stuff to do with mental health and so on. Working to open a chakra point, it's somewhere between, you've got your diaphragm and your belly button, it's about halfway between that. There's a point, and it's just probably the bottom part of the stomach, it seems to be a key energy point. And I don't know how it all works, but maybe that's where I'm going to have to look at a chart. Because if you're sensing and you're doing meditating and you feel effect in your body, and you think, what's that effect? And you start concentrating on it, you want to know what you're doing and why you're doing it and how it's working. A lot of it's to do, the neuroscience is that you're increasing the flow of electrical energy and feedback between the parasympathetic nervous system and your own conscious nervous system, I guess. It's not really subconscious, maybe subtle conscious, and there's guiding conscious, and there's also your dominant instinctive consciousness and other areas in the human psyche, I guess. But it was the easiest way to think of it as a sub, and so it's kind of a passive and a sort of an active psyche that's in play. The reason one's subtle is because there's so many things going on. If it made it too active, you'd be hypersensitive, which would bring you more into an autistic spectrum, which some people suffer from. It's because their nervous system is similar in both ways. But I think there's also a lot of stuff to do with the stomach not being activated, so possibly the other neural networks are taking over the responsibility of supporting the activity in the organs, which creates certain behaviour. So it's very interesting. The mind in the human isn't centralised in one location, it's divided amongst the whole of the person. So see, at the moment, channeling things, information coming in. So we've got this ormus experiment, very interesting. So, and then also ormus is orbitally rearranged matter stroke energy, I guess. But it's also influenced by frequency. So normally people use salts, because salts contain certain minerals like platinum, palladium, and some other loads of things that act as superconductors. And when they're supercharged with a frequency, they keep this charge inside them. And then when it comes into your own body, that charge is distributed into your body so it binds with your nervous system, and also there's some quantum elements in it as well. Basically, when you cause fusion, you break something in half. It's kind of almost like the shadow version of it's generated as well. So there's a connection between other dimensions. So it's that effect. It's finding something at the lowest point that we know in our science that can exist in the physical realm. The only thing that causes things to become physical is mainly the electrons, and it's the photonic charge of things when they come in contact with light. The light, they reflect the frequency and it reinforces their field dynamics, making them something more physical and tangible. So the higher the field dynamics on a material, the harder it becomes, such as water and ice. By changing the frequency of it, it becomes a harder material and crystallizes. And then it has to form into other sort of crystals. But the crystallized structure comes from a more quantum field of its dynamics of the energy flow in the water's molecules. That's why it's got lines down it. It's like a tree's got lines in it. It's to do with the frequency reverberating through the ice. So there's lots of things there. And I guess all materials generate a certain amount of sound and frequency. That we don't just generate infrared light from our bodies, we're also generating sound waves. Certain animals use sound waves, like elephants can stomp on the floor and deliver a shock wave that will basically stun you, in the same way that a lion's roar has an ultrasonic strike in there, which affects your nervous system. So that stuns people as well. That's why they let out such a powerful roar. It's also a weapon that's used against crowd control. So if you've got a mass of animals that are sort of charging at you, say you've got a deer coming at you, if you let out that, half of them could freeze, half of them run away, and the ones that are totally immobilised, you target as for prey. So that's a part of that weaponisation. It's a bit like a firing a flashbang into a crowd, I guess. So frequencies and energy of ultrasound is probably like science we haven't really tapped in so much. With the Ormus, when it's reconstructing and reconfiguring, it's going through its transition stage, possibly putting a ultrasonic frequency into the Ormus plus maybe a crystal would increase an energy transition into the material itself. That's one of the things you can do. To explain that better, when things cool down or are influenced by a frequency, they usually take on that energy pattern into themselves. A bit similar to what humans do when they fall in love with each other, I guess. They harmonise their frequency pattern. So it would gain some of the crystal's energy, and because the energy of the crystal is more naturally in tune with the earth, which is also in tune with the heart, it would make it more powerful, basically. So there we go. So anyway, this is lots of things coming through spiritually, a bit of channeling, a bit of this. This is probably the higher forms of channeling. It's not you try to take on an entity, it's merging with it at a conscious level, a psychic conscious level. And we all come from different kind of spiritual families, and so we have a shared link to these families, these beings. We also share a link with things that are both terrestrial and unterrestrial as well, like we call hyperdimensional, hypodimensional, the lower frequencies, and higher frequencies, so we kind of span out a bit. So when your mind's more in tune, you can pick up on these other frequencies. There's something else as well that I was aware of, and that my yoga teacher mentioned about, was reincarnation could happen in multiple places at multiple times through a multiple universal effect. So I exist in many forms everywhere. So it would be the answer. I'm a reverberating frequency throughout space and time. I can't be killed, nor can I be destroyed. I could be merged though. It could merge me with another frequency. I'd become something completely different if you did that. So that's what we aim to do, I guess. We become the ultimate frequency. Yeah. Anything else? These other experiments? Well, this ultrasound frequency would be very interesting. I don't know how to tie into Rife as well. We've got a Rife machine. How that might affect. I'll be really interested to find out. Anyway, I'll leave you to it at the moment because I'll probably blow your brain with all that stuff, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.